And when you think about this product, it's an actual product. The grips are actual products that were patented. I have an actual patent on this particular design that holds gloves and gear. But in order to understand the product itself, you really have to think about what went into it. But before you think about what went into it, you have to think about how it was created. And it was simply created by a 7-year-old kid. Now, if we date back my life to when I was about 7 years old, there was a lot of things going on. I wasn't the greatest student, but I did build a lot of model kits. You can ask mom and dad. They can tell you they always had to drive me. This is when we used to live in Evanston. They used to have to drive me to Tom Thumb all the time so I can get my model kits. And I would buy model kits that I can build. And when I was building these model kits, I was picking, in particular, cars or planes that I was interested in, that I really loved a lot. I knew the specs, and I wanted to build them from scratch. And the best way for me to be able to do that was to purchase a model kit, look at the instructions, have my clippers, and build it piece by piece. And at the end, I had an actual finished product. And that's what sticks to my head the most, is the fact that I actually was able to build something. Wasn't the greatest student in school. You can even ask my parents' dad as well. Talked a lot, was all over the place, didn't seem to focus. But this is what I was really good at. I was actually really good at building model kits. Ferraris, I mean, it got to the point where I logged in so much time that I would get model kits that were designed for older kids. And I would, in particular, I remember this Ferrari Testarossa. It had rack and pinion steering. When you're done, you should be able to actually use this small car and turn the steering wheel, and it should utilize that rack and pinion so you can actually steer the car. I built that from scratch with that model kit as a child. And at the end, you were able to stick your fingers into the actual cabin of the vehicle where that little steering wheel was, and turn the steering wheel and watch the wheels turn. It was the coolest thing as a kid. And then I got into building warplanes, F-14 Tomcats, F-15 Strike Eagles, aircraft carriers, you name it. As a child, if I was interested in it, I was going to build it. And I built it from scratch. I mean, it probably smelled like glue for the longest time. You had plastic pieces all over the place, but I loved to do it. It was a passion that I had. You could build it from scratch. You could see the progress, and at the end, you saw the result. That, to me, was exciting. Now, you fast forward to middle school, and I had photography classes. It was awesome. I had photography classes. I had wood shop. I had cooking class, pottery making class, clay making class, and those were the ones that I felt the most connected to, because I was able to utilize the skills that I developed as a child building these model kits and now implementing it to building more things using different materials. I mean, could it get any better than that as a kid? I mean, the workshop that we had, I remember the teacher's name, Mr. Spitz, told us to build something. And if our project was to utilize wood, you had to pick a specific furniture. At the time, it was a tray, and you picked the wood, you designed it, and you used any of the machines that they had at the workshop, that Mr. Spitz had at the workshop. And to me, it was I wish I had that same workshop today, because you had planers, you had buffing wheels, you had sanders, belt sanders. It was, you name it, they had it there. And it was the coolest thing as a kid. It was the greatest thing, because you could actually build something from scratch, pick the wood out, and at the end, you had this again, a viable product that you can use. I still have those pieces today that I gave to my mom, and it was the coolest thing. You could even stain the wood, and you fast forward from there. Within that same period, I was actually building remote control cars. Me and my brother used to play with remote control cars because I had a fond interest in cars, as you can tell by the model kits. So we bought stock remote control cars, and it got to the point where I was like, it was kind of boring because you couldn't modify them. So what did we do? We ordered model car kits that you can build from scratch. You're building your own batteries, you're putting your own motors in, you're using soldering irons. So you got lead everywhere. But if you think about it, it sounds complex today, but when you're a kid and you logged in so many hours of building things prior to that, it was just another problem solving skill, and you had a finished product by the end of it. And now you had these remote control cars, which were pretty fast, driving all over the street. And then we started designing We started getting different motors, different gear ratios, different types of battery to make them last longer. How do we make these things go further? How do we make these things go 45, 50 miles an hour? Those were the things that we were trying to solve. And in order to do that, you had to experiment. And it got to the point where we were actually building our own chassis out of fiberglass. That's how creative we got. Now, 6, 7 years ago, and I developed something as simplistic as this. But I really did design this. It was that 7-year-old kid way back then that logged in all those hours to be able to imagine something like this, because this solves a huge problem. I mean, it first started on the golf course and people were losing these things all over the place. I started losing them. I noticed playing partners that I played with were losing them. They'd have to run back about 2 holes to grab it and put it back in their pocket, but they were always losing it, so I came up with a solution. Easy. And the only reason why I came up with this solution is because as a kid I logged in all these hours of imagination, problem-solving skills, and building a product to be able to address and solve this big problem. Of course, this is a simple design. I needed to be more complex and to do more, so I added this feature, open closure design. So you can put other gear here. It can hold on other things like your shoe bag, the golf course, beer bags, other type of equipment, lunch bag. And then, of course, it doesn't just limit it to golf. You can put a baseball glove here, a football glove. You can use it for construction. And then last but not least, we have something for fighters for boxing gloves. But when you look at this product, I don't want you to think of it as just solely a product. I want you to look at this and say, it was a 7-year-old kid by the name of Oliver Carnati that developed this simplistic product that actually works to solve problems, and he got a patent on it. Because when you look at it, these aren't just simply clips. I had to look for a clip that would not fail. So I went through at least 30 clips. The D-rings that match with it. The webbing holds 3,000 pounds. Is it necessary? Not necessary, but if you don't want it to fail, you've got to go with quality. And when I built model kits when I was a kid, by the time I was done with it, I wanted that thing to look perfect. I wanted it to look like quality. The tray table that I made in Mr. Spitz's class in middle school, or the piggy bank, I wanted that thing to look like quality, like a professional made mat. The remote control cars, I wanted it to look, even the way I painted it, it had to look professional. Parts had to be quality parts. So that's what I incorporated with this, even up to the hook and loop material. 10,000 open closures before it starts to manually start to change. Overkill? I don't think so. The X pattern that I put here so that it distributes the tension and pressure so that it doesn't actually tear the Velcro fabric itself, part of the whole design. So this whole design was simply made by a 7-year-old way back in the day. I took all those hours to be able to understand the problem, to be able to solve it through repetition, and to come up with a conclusion, all right, and to repeat that process until I get to where I am today. All right. So if you like what I had to say, make sure you make a comment below, or if you want to personally send me a message because you have some questions or concerns that you might have, or anything you want to know about me, don't hesitate to contact me. Make sure you like G Handle's page, and make sure you check out Oliver Carnati's entrepreneur page because I post different things on there. Check out Instagram, check out YouTube, and I'm also on Twitter. Again, this is Oliver Carnati, my G Handle office. Talk to you guys soon.